Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 42nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Also, guys, we really appreciate you guys getting us over that 3,000 sub mark. We did hit that. I believe we're at 3,007, so we actually in like 12 or 13 subs last week. So we really appreciate that. So again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're going to try to build here. And we hope you can join this community. And eventually, we would love to get a call-in show. My number to me is if we hit 3,500 subs, that is when we'll start a call-in show. As soon as that number's hit, call-in show. So please get us there so you guys can join in and talk to us. Let's get to this first topic, which I think is very, very prevalent and also interesting because the combine just happened. Does Texas develop better than everyone else? I think that's a conversation we need to have right now, Gerald. So I will let you take the floor with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I was here in like front row for Texas is where 5 stars go to die, right? Like that was part of the conversation around Texas for years and years. And so now we're looking at Texas having back-to-back record years of combine attendees, multiple guys putting up ridiculous numbers, right? Golden putting up a massive number on the 40, Jahdae Barron putting up a massive number on the 40, right? Quinn Ewers looked really good throwing the ball in the drills, which, again, he talked about having an injury. So I think at this point, I don't want to say he develops better than everybody else, right? Because, like, it seems like Georgia is still out there, right? Like Washington's putting a lot of guys out there. Not Washington used to. Oregon's putting a lot of good guys out there. But I think when it comes to sheer volume and being able to say we've got guys at every position that are going to the next level, right? We've got offensive linemen, defensive linemen, wide receivers, guys in the secondary. Linebackers will be next year, right? Because Anthony Hill will be there, right? Specialists, not quite this year, but again, next year we also have them in the league right now. So like as it stands, better than everybody on like a one-to-one basis, maybe not, but when it looks to across the breadth of the position groups, right? Texas had a representative at literally every position group outside of linebacker this year. And that to me tells a story of a place where regardless of your position, you are going to get that level of development.
Yeah, 100%. That was something that other fan bases could hit us at, you know? You have 10 5-stars, but guess what? None of them became first-round picks. So does that really mean anything? Because, guys, in recruiting, 5-stars are supposed to be first-round picks. That's how they do recruiting. So if you're a 5-star, it should be a first-round pick. 4-stars, like second, third-round pick. And Texas wasn't doing that. 5-stars at Texas would come, and they'd become second- or third-round picks. 4-stars would be fifth- or sixth-round picks. 3-stars would be undrafted. That isn't the case now. Now you're having 3-stars getting drafted in second, third, fourth round. You're having 5-stars getting developed and being first-round picks. You're having someone like Matthew Golden, who honestly, if he stayed at Houston, probably would have been like a fifth or sixth round pick, comes in. And I said in the offseason, everyone was underestimating him. I loved him. I thought, possibility of maybe a second-round pick. I didn't think he'd be a first-round pick. And guess what? He's going to be a first-round pick. There's a better chance he's the number one wide receiver taken off the board now than he not being a first-round pick, which is just crazy to see. He really came on late, and it's just crazy. And then Jahdae Barron just blew me away with the speed. Like, I wasn't expecting 4.39. Like, I was expecting probably mid-4s for him. So that
which would have been a good number. A 4.5 would have been a great number.
Yeah, if he got a 4.5, he still would have been a first-round pick. Now we're talking about a guy that, like, he could be a top 10 pick. Legitimately, if someone fell in love with him, this guy could be the top 10 pick, which is crazy to say, but he definitely could be. So it's really awesome to see that. And then like you hit on, Gerald, we have 14 invites this year. I believe that was either tied with Ohio State or it was number 2. Last year, we were number 2 behind Michigan. Michigan was number 1. So back-to-back years, we're either number 2 or tied for number 1. That's really good. That's 25 guys in 2 years, which is a crazy number. And I think there's a real chance, guys, like the 15 players is the most ever drafted by a team in one draft. That was Georgia in 2022. I think Texas could tie that record. I really believe that because all it really takes is someone like a Hayden Conner or David Bender or someone like that getting drafted. And you're going to be at that record for the most part because Vernon Broughton's going to get drafted. Alfred Collins is going to get drafted. Guys like that are going to get drafted. So
Barron Sorrell made himself some money this weekend.
Yes. He went from being like a 6th-round pick. He'll probably be a 4th or 5th-round pick. And I thought he was underrated to begin with. I loved him at Texas. I thought he did his job like superbly. Like he wasn't asked to do things people wanted him to do. He just did what he was asked to do. So I always thought it was like kind of stupid, honestly, that people said, well, he doesn't have a lot of sacks. Well, guess what? That wasn't his job at Texas. His job was to stop the run, and he did a phenomenal job at that. So And he's just a really good guy too. So I expected him to get drafted. Gunnar Helm did have a week for pro day, or combine, but again, that was because of the ankle sprain. I fully believe that. Like, that number to me, there's no way in hell he's running a 4.8. I watched that guy. He's not a 4.8 guy. If you told me it's like a 4.65, I could see that.
Yeah.
But 4.8's crazy. There's no way that's actually him.
Yeah, the ankle thing, and he did it like early in the competition. So he did the remainder of the drills on a bum ankle and did relatively well, right? And that was the Gunnar Helm 40 time was the big red flag for me coming out of the weekend. And then we saw the reports of the ankle injury. That makes sense. So like, he's going to need a strong pro day. He's going to need to perform well there if the ankle is even remotely healed up before then. But that's like the one. And again, Gunnar Helm, a 3-star kid who we were surprised that he did not really have the numbers that we thought he was going to be. And so again, he's got an opportunity to build that up. But again, he was a guy who Texas brought in. Jeff Banks did a great job of developing him and turning him into a guy who, will probably still be a top 3 round kind of guy, a 3rd round pick kind of guy at tight end. I think it's a great opportunity for him and a great selling point for Texas.
No, 100%. Isaiah Bond, listen, you shouldn't have talked, but you ran a great time. Like 4.39 is a really damn good time.
Great
you can't
time.
just be like, you know what, I'm going to run like a 4.2 or a 4.19. Just don't say that, and it would have been phenomenal. Same with Jaden Blue. You didn't need to say, even though I will say this, Jaden Blue was fast. I really did think he was going to run like a 4.3 or 4.29 or something like that. He was a little bit slower overall than I thought he was going to be, because like his breakaway speed was insane at Texas. So I thought he'd run a little bit better 40. But overall, still really good weekend for everyone. I thought Kelvin Banks kind of put everything to rest about him being a guard. His wingspan and his arm length were all above average. Now, were they like huge? No, but they were all in that average percentile wise. So I think he's a tackle. And to me, guys, him and Will Campbell, they both have the same knock of small arms. Will Campbell, I will say, knocked out of the park everywhere else as well. But I'm just done with that. Like, both those guys were 3-year starters in the SEC and started as freshmen. To me, all I need to know is the tape, because they dominated on tape. Draft them as tackles, play them as tackles, and guess what? If they struggle, then try them at guard. But your first option shouldn't be, you know what? I'm kind of questionable on the numbers, but then the tape's amazing. I'm going to slide him to guard. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The one thing, like the feather in his cap is Kelvin Banks, second week as a starter, second week on freaking campus, went up against not one but 2 first-round edge rushers and didn't give up a single sack as a true freaking freshman, right? Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, shut them the heck down, right? That's all you need to tell me. But one of my best friends is an NFL writer for Sharp, and that was the big knock on Banks was, what is he going to measure? What is he going to measure? He measured fine. Like, was it out of the park? Is he one of these massive freaks of nature? No, but like he's fine, right? And he's done everything. He hits the numbers. He played really, really well. Again, 3-year starter in the SEC, lined up against some of the best edge rushers you're going to see, right? Guys that you're going to see on Saturdays or Sundays in the NFL. So like it doesn't make, and the knocks just start to become knocks for the sake of it at this point.
Yeah, and it's funny because he went up against Trevor Gooseby is back and went up against Shamar Stewart, who's probably going to be a first-round pick, did pretty well. I would assume Kelvin Banks would have done pretty well. And so that's what's so interesting about the NFL draft, because Shamar Stewart's going to get drafted just purely based off of numbers and skill testing, whereas Kelvin Banks is going to probably fall a little bit more than he should because of that, but his tape is excellent. So it's always interesting with the NFL what teams value what. I don't think he gets outside of the top 15. I think he ends up with the Dolphins, honestly, from everything I've seen. But for me, for this question, I think Texas is in. I'm not willing to say they're number 1 with development right now, but they're in tier 1. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. To me, it's Ohio State, it's Georgia, and it's Texas. And then I think, honestly, Michigan develops very well, too, for the players they get. So they're probably in tier 1. I think those are my 4 tier 1s. If you want to argue Alabama, you can argue Alabama still. So those are really the only 5 teams I think you can argue. I don't think Oregon's there yet. I really don't, especially with the struggles some of these guys the last couple of years have had at the combine, like Tez Johnson being 150 and running like a 4.5 or whatever is not good. That's not good at all.
Not great. No.
And they haven't had a first-round wide receiver, I think, since Ahmad Rashad, if you remember that name.
Wow.
It was like 1970 something. So honestly, that's still something they're kind of missing to me. Like, they have the talent, but it's not being developed as well as people think it is. So they're still in tier 2 for me. So, but Texas, in my opinion, is in tier 1.
I think that's fair. And I mean, again, 14 guys across every spot against every level on both sides of the ball. like from a sheer volume standpoint, nobody's doing it better.
No, and if we get 3 first-round picks, it'll be the first time since 1980. So, 45 years with 3 first-round picks. That's crazy. So, Steve
Huge.
Sarkisian, the staff, killing it. Hopefully, the guys that have come in will continue this trend of killing it and developing these players. Because guess what? The talent's going to come into Texas. It always has. It always will. It's about the development, and they're killing it right now, developmental-wise. So, we'll see how they do next year. That does it for that subject. Let's jump over to this one real quick. So Bill Connolly came out with his S&P Plus and returning production. Overall, I have the picture right here. Returning production, Texas, I believe, is in the hundreds. So is Georgia.
Yep.
Usually that is not a good thing, guys, but there are certain outliers every year. So just running through the SEC real quick. Auburn is 22nd. Alabama's 35th. Mississippi State 37th. Which, I mean, see, this is the double-edged sword of that. They're a really bad football team.
Yeah.
Do you really want people returning that were on a bad football team?
Not all returning production is good production, right?
Yes, exactly. LSU 38th, Missouri 51st, Kentucky 52nd, Tennessee 58th, Arkansas 64th, South Carolina 71st. And then this is where we drop down to 3 of the top 4 teams from last year. Texas 103rd, Georgia 105th, and Ole Miss 113th. So what do those numbers tell you, Gerald? And is it a concern moving forward for Texas?
That number tells me that Texas sent 14 guys to the NFL Combine, right? That's what it tells me, right? Start at QB1, running back 2, wide receiver 1 and 2, tight end 1, right? On the offensive side, that is all of the major skill positions turning over. We knew that. It doesn't really tell me anything new. Again, this is not – Bill Connolly is one of the smartest guys out there when it comes to advanced stats, but, like, that's why looking at returning production is tough, because we knew that Texas going into this was going to have a recycle of the talent, right? Quinn Ewers, been a 3-year starter. He's gone. QB1. Got Jaden Blue, who was a running back 2 this year. Again, Golden, Bond, Helm, all those guys, offensive production. We knew that Texas was going to have a refresh on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, you've got Jahdae Barron, who's gone. Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins. All those guys, David Benda, right? Barron Sorrell, those guys gone, right? All of those guys were on the top of the list for Texas production a year ago. We knew this was going to be something. And again, not all returning production is good production, right? If your team sucks, those are the same guys that sucked a year ago. So, like, there's no 2 ways around saying that. But for Texas, it's not anything new. Like, we knew new quarterback. We knew that the running back position was going to be something to turn over again. And for Texas, getting CJ Baxter back instead of having Jaden Blue back there might be a step up. We'll talk about that maybe in a couple weeks, right? Wide receiver is the one that I probably have the most concern about when it comes to returning production, but this is nothing new to me.
No, and it's kind of piggybacking off the last topic of, hey, if you're trusting this staff to develop talent, then this shouldn't be that big of an issue. Like Sark said, it's a good thing when you're sending these guys out the door and they're going in the first, second round of the NFL draft, and then you're bringing in new guys and you just keep doing the same cycle. We saw Alabama do that. We saw Georgia do that. We see Ohio State do that. To win a national championship, that is how you do it. Guys, there isn't any team I've ever seen where it's a one-hit wonder team of, if you're not like recycling players like that, you have to do that to be at that level year in and year out. You have to. And no one wins at the first bite of the apple. Alabama didn't win at the first bite of the apple. Georgia didn't win at the first bite of the apple. Ohio State took them for a long time. As their fans before this national championship, they were tired of it. They were said, when are we going to knock the door down? But if you continue to produce NFL talent, eventually you will knock the door down. It will happen. That is the key. So I think that's a really good thing. And like you said, it does matter. Like Mississippi State returning production ahead of us, that doesn't mean they're going to have a better team, because guess what? A lot of those guys weren't that good that are returning. Oklahoma, I actually didn't even name the top 4. It's A&M, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Florida. I mean, I don't know about Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. I honestly don't even know about A&M. And a lot of it, too, is your returning production from quarterback. Your quarterback is a big, big chunk of that. So if you're losing your quarterback and you don't have anyone filling in, it's a big issue. But we have Arch Manning filling in, and I'm very confident. Are there certain positions I'm not as confident about? Absolutely. I agree with you. I think if I'm ranking confidence levels, my least confident rooms are probably defensive tackle, tight end, and then wide receiver. I think there's a bigger gap between defensive tackle, tight end, and then I think there's a gap to wide receiver for me. But those other 2 I am a little bit worried about, because again, last year, defensive tackle, we had Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton waiting in the wings. I don't know who that's going to be this year, because I haven't seen any of these guys play at any level yet at
No.
Texas. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, do we have the talent to get there? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, this is going to be a young team, and I think that's the big concern for like week one Ohio State. But again, where does Ohio State rank on that list? Pretty darn low, right? So both of these teams are going to be turning it over pretty significantly. But Texas has done a good job of creating depth, right? Texas is a very, very deep team and a very talented team that is deep. They may not have a ton of production. They may not have a ton of snaps yet, but these are guys that everybody in the country wanted coming out of high school. So I have trust and I have faith that they've been able to get these guys where they need. And if you look at the most recent coaching hires, right? The most recent coaching hires that Texas has had, you think about defensive tackle coach, you think about wide receiver coach, now you think about hiring Dwayne Akina back there in the secondary. Those are guys who are not really focused on recruiting. Those are guys that are focused primarily on development and teaching. And so Texas's focus really has been, I think, in my opinion, on focusing on development, getting these guys ready, giving these guys the skills that they need to step up when you have these big drops in production. And guess what? Next year, Texas will be near the top because they're going to return quarterback one, wide receiver one, running back one, right? They're going to return a bunch of those guys. So Texas will be a top 5 team this time next year. So it feels like a much ado about nothing. And again, returning production, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I remember looking into this last year, talking about where teams rank in returning productions that win a national championship. There's a big range for that, guys. Would you rather have your team be super talented in returning? Absolutely. You have those on rare occasions. I think you saw that with the 2023 Michigan team. I think that's the best example of it, where literally like every player came back from the previous 2 teams that had made the college football playoff, but that's super rare. That usually doesn't happen. I think Ohio State had that this year as well, where they're like, let's run it back. Those are rare instances, and I think you might see that more with NIL, so that's going to be interesting moving forward. But before that, it really didn't happen. Like, if you watch those Alabama teams, they were constantly like in the 30s to 40s, and then one year they'd be in the 90s, and then one year they'd be at the top. So it is what it is. If you're going to win a national championship again, you just got to continue to produce NFL talent. I also wanted to talk about this. I'm a bad host. I did not give Gerald the information about the S&P Plus, but I wanted to read this list real quick. So S&P Plus is basically an efficiency stat, and it's looking into the future. How will you continue to look into the future efficiency-wise? And that's how they rank them. So the top 10, I'll run it down from 10 to 1. LSU is number 10 going into next year. Ole Miss is 9. Tennessee is 8. Texas is 7. So I was surprised by that. Oregon is 6. Notre Dame is 5. Georgia is 4. Penn State is 3. Alabama is 2. And Ohio State is 1. So out of those 10, I guess, who is like the biggest surprise, or do you disagree with any of the teams ranked ahead of Texas?
Not necessarily. I mean, Ohio State feels weird because they're much like Texas in a position where they're turning over the entirety of their offensive roster effectively. Outside, they've got the 2 best wide receivers in the country coming back, but quarterback, offensive line, running back, that's a whole retread. In Texas's trouble, and I actually tweeted at Bill Connolly about this after the bowl game. Like, Texas's special team score in their S&P drags them down pretty significantly. So that's part of the reason why they're so low, is because let's just put it out there. Special teams kind of sucked this year. So the special teams grade was pretty abysmal. So that's part of the reason why Texas got dragged down in that. But I don't necessarily am I surprised? No, I think, Vegas would probably say that Texas has the best odds to win a national championship. All the podcasts I listen to say Texas is one of the picks for a national champion. But I think those are all the teams that can compete. That list of top 10, I would be shocked if more than one of them was not in the college football playoff next year. So I think that, to me, is just a grouping of probable CFP teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If I had to like nitpick, I would say Oregon. So kind of surprised me. And Alabama, number 2 is way too high to me. I don't give a crap about, honestly, any returning production, any efficiency stat. After what I watched last year, I have and they're replacing their quarterback. And listen, you may not like Jalen Milroe, but I've watched Ty Simpson and I have not been impressed. So I just completely disagree with that. And also, does he weigh special teams equally with offense and defense?
I'm not sure how he calculates it, but I know it's in there.
Okay. Yeah, because if that's equal, that's asinine to me, because it should be like, I don't know, 70% offense and defense, 30% special teams, in my opinion. It should be a little bit less.
Yeah, it's like a 40-40-20 situation.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way you can say special teams is equally important, in my opinion. Now, I will agree, you can't be disastrous on special teams, and we were bordering on that this year. We were pretty
Very
damn
close.
close. Like Silas Bolden, if he doesn't make 2 or 3 of those catches, we're talking about disastrous special teams.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too. Like, we have to get better. Punting game, I'm actually not that concerned after watching Michael Kern, and we have the other guy, Jack Bowmeister. Geez, I can't say his last name.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, but the kicker, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I'm not very confident in that.
I would be shocked if we saw Sideshow Bob trotted out there week 1. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go with him in Ohio State, and like when they sent Will Stone out there and he kicked that extra point, my heart was going crazy because like I've never seen this guy kick in a game. I have no idea what to expect here. So we'll have to see, because to me, it took a long time to get to that Will Stone point, which I don't really love, because if you liked him, I think you would have got there earlier.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is something that Sark has said, though. He's kind of loyal to a fault, right? And I think he gave Bert Auburn multiple chances because Sark is loyal to his guys, right? And I get that, but also, like, you can't, it's not really a nice guy business, right? It's not really something that's going to help you out. If special teams is costing you games, like it nearly did in a couple of spots, like you gotta shrug the nice guy off and make a tough call.
Yeah, we just have to be good this year. Again, like Gerald says, we don't have to be great. Just don't lose games for us.
Just don't suck.
Don't suck. So that does it for that segment. We really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Also, guys, this is a sponsor that is with the Michigan channel, and they love partnering with the voice of college football. So get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners posted on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. I have that in the comments. If you know anyone that would like to sponsor any show on the network, does not have to be ours, please reach out to that email. We really appreciate it, guys, and we really appreciate you guys being here. Again, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button down below. Also, let's get to this next topic, which is Tyler Atkinson. I wanted to talk about him because I think he's a super special player out of Grayson, Georgia. He is a 4-star, and he is he's actually a 5-star according to 247 Composite. Number 1 linebacker in the country, number 8 player overall in the nation. So a really good player. We have yet to schedule a visit. We are trying to schedule a visit. Gerald, what do you like about him?
I mean, what's not to like, right? Like, shows incredible instincts, great closing speed. I think back to like Malik Jefferson's high school tape where like he's just not in the hole, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm here and I'm going to make a big play. He lines up at interior linebacker, but like I put this in my notes, he has wheels like an outside linebacker though. Like he's very much aggressive in run support, very, very, I already said it, great instincts, knows when to close, knows when to drop back, like does a really good job just playing the position, way more polished than you see most high school linebackers. Again, I think of like an Anthony Hill, right? Anthony Hill's a very, very good guy, very good player, very talented linebacker, but a lot of times he was kind of just like a scud missile, right? Like I'm just going to go and be the best guy on the field and blow somebody up. And where Tyler Atkinson really plays with a little more polish at this level than he needs to be. And I think, Texas targets guys like him because unfortunately there is for all of the positions that Texas produces really well, linebacker is just not one that State of Texas produces a ton of elite talent, right? Ant Hill and then Malik Jefferson before him, right? So like there's a big gap between those two guys. But again, back on Atkinson, like he is the elite of the elite. And if Texas can't get him on campus, it sucks because, there is a need there. Anthony Hill gone after this year. Let's go and say it, right? So you need another guy to step in there and be that elite linebacker and hold down that defense.
No, 100%. I think that's what's important about it. What sucks is Tashard Choice was his lead recruiter, being from the state of Georgia, recruiting that area. So we're definitely going to have to find someone that connects with him. And that's always hard. Like when you lose a lead recruiter like that, that's probably gotten pretty personal with the kid, probably text him pretty often. And then you're going to have to plug someone else in there. That really sucks. But If he likes the school, he likes Steve Sarkisian overall, and Sark is a really good closer. If Sark can get on that level with him personal and close it, that's a really big deal. And this is the thing that I noticed too. So this is the thing that Sark recruits do. Again, versatility, but then also this. He's skinny and but he has a big frame. Like, he's not a big guy right now, but he's able to put on weight. He's able to put on size. That is something Steve Sarkisian has wanted here at Texas. You see that with guys like Smith Orogbo. And Ty Anthony Smith is another guy at the linebacker position.
Bo Barnes.
Yeah, Bo Barnes. Like, he just wants a guy that's like a heat-seeking missile, basically, on defense. Has that mentality, and then he's able to put on weight, because it's harder to teach the mentality than it is to put on weight. It's pretty easy for someone this young, this genetically gifted, to put on weight. It's hard to get that mentality ingrained in that person. So he has the mentality, which I really like. Yeah. Like I said, he's not great. He has great start and stop ability. Like, you see him, I kind of compare it to Luka Doncic in the NBA. He may not be the fastest guy, but he's able to get up to speed and then stop on a dime really quickly. Yeah. And I think that's really important at the linebacker position, and just defense in general, being able to read, react, and then stop, and then have to change direction if you need to. So I really like that ability from him as well. And again, guys, I think it's just a big deal when we can get a guy from Georgia at this high a level, if we can get him to campus and we can get him to sign, because that opens up that pipeline. That's another reason why Justice Terry was so big, not just because he's a hell of a football player, but because it opens up that pipeline to Georgia.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Texas, again, has done a really good job making inroads into those SEC states, right? Georgia, Florida, they've gone into multiple times. Alabama, even, they've gotten some kids from Alabama to come through, right? And that to me, especially because at these positions where the state of Texas doesn't produce as elite talent, right? Like, Texas shouldn't have to leave the state of Texas for, I don't know, quarterbacks, right? Texas produces quarterbacks like, leaves falling from the sky, right? But there are other positions where having ends in Georgia, in Alabama, in Florida, where again, just different types of commits come out of there, different types of elite players. And again, for some reason, the state of Texas just doesn't put out linebackers. And so, like, the highest ranked linebacker in the state of Texas, I think, is like like right inside the top 200, like 215 or something like that. So, like, again, great player, no shot at him, but like, there's just a difference. There's levels to it. And so Texas being able to make these inroads into Florida, Georgia, California has been huge for Texas as well. So being able to get those inroads to these states that aren't traditionally spots for Texas to recruit, it's why the move to the SEC worked, because now a kid from Georgia, your parents can see you on TV if you go to Texas, right? They can stay home and come see you play at Georgia, right? Those are opportunities that they have where they didn't quite have as much when Texas was in the Big 12.
No, 100%. And also, just another thing, an obvious one, it keeps them out of Georgia. It keeps them away from Georgia. You don't have to play him. You don't have to see him on the other side of the ball when you line up versus Georgia. And let's be honest here, guys. We have a Georgia problem in basically every sport, it seems like. So let's, like, whenever we can get someone from Georgia, take them away and not have to play them, and they're on our side, especially someone this talented who's going to be a composite 5-star at the end of this cycle and probably a top 10 player like he already is. I doubt he moves out of that. It's special. And again, you can get this. There are certain positions Texas has gotten the ball rolling of when someone goes to the NFL, there's someone there to replace him. I don't think linebacker's quite there yet. Someone like this goes a long way into doing that. I think offensive line, honestly, is there. I think edges at Texas are there. I think wide receivers are there. I think running back is like that. I think quarterback is like that. Linebacker's not one of those. I don't think cornerback is all the way like that either. I think we need about one or two big-time more cornerbacks there, one or two more big-time safety. Honestly, actually, safety, we're probably only about one away. We're pretty close at safety, but linebacker and cornerback, that's probably the two heaviest positions that we need to start get the ball rolling to where, hey, this guy went to the NFL, no big deal. We have another guy coming in. Because after Anthony Hill leaves next year, we don't know what we have, honestly. Leandro Lafau's there, and he's a good player, but we don't know if he can take that responsibility.
And Lafau was good this year in spots. He also had some really bad games. So, again, he's going to have a jump up this year as he gets more and more production. But losing, and asking somebody to step into Anthony Hill's shoes is unfair. But, how do you get somebody who's 75% of the way there, right? How do you have that person waiting in the wings?
No, 100%. So this is a really big get if Texas can get it. I'm hoping they can. I'm hoping they get him on a visit. Because again, guys, if you can't get someone on a visit, they're not going to come to Texas. I think there has been guys like that in the past, but they're very, very rare. You have to get people on campus to be able to get them to commit. So that goes to say with Tyler Atkins. Let's jump over to Javion Osborne. Obviously, with Tashard Choice, again, mentioning him because it was a big deal. It's probably the biggest loss of the staff. It might be you might be able to argue it's the biggest loss of the Steve Sarkisian era to lose him, which is saying a lot because we've lost a lot of good coaches. But as soon as he heard that, he canceled his Texas visit. He no longer has a scheduled. I think Michigan is the clear leader right there. What do you think of Javion Osborne, and do you think is a priority to try to get back on board?
I mean, what do I think of him? I think he's an elite kid. There's very few kinds of running backs that could start for 4 years at the 5A level, right? And Javion Osborne is one of those kids, right? He is able to. He's an every down back. He's a guy who can do it all. There's no praise high enough for what I think about Javion Osborne as a prospect, right? But I also think fans need to temper themselves as like he was a Tashard Choice kid. It just is what it is, right? That's why the tea leaves started shifting the other way when Tashard Choice left, because Javion Osborne, I think, was a Tashard Choice kid. And the thing that like is a big red flag for me is that Texas has already gotten KJ Edwards back on the schedule, but Osborne isn't, right? And so I don't know why or how the breakdown has happened, but Edwards is there, and Edwards is really good out of Carthage, right? I love him. He's great. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get Osborne back off of his schedule, because that is, to me, something that, when a coach like Tashard Choice, who is top 1% of recruiters in the country, right? That's part of the big reason why losing guys like that is so devastating, is because you lose these relationships. We talked about Tyler Atkinson, right? Just a second ago. It was a Tashard Choice kid. So again, Javion Osborne, would love to have him on campus. I'm just not super hopeful that is going to happen because his relationship with Tashard Choice was so deep.
No, I agree with that. And I also think you brought up a really good point. He may not be Chad Scott's flavor. Like, he's a good player, but he may just not be the guy that Chad Scott wants. He may have watched other tape and been like, hey, I want this guy. But he did reach out. He has reportedly reached out twice, talked to him. So there is an open line of communication there, which is good. But yeah, they've kind of locked in on KJ Edwards, Xavier Crowell. They brought up into the fold a little bit more. He's supposed to visit as well. We mentioned that last week, so go check out that video. He's from Alabama. KJ Edwards, like you said, from Carthage, which is Texas. Javion Osborne is an in-state kid, so that does hurt a little bit. But if you can replace him with another in-state kid like KJ Edwards, that's a really good thing.
Yep.
Like I said, I like Javion Osborne, but do I think he's not Tyler Atkinson to me? Like I said, I think Tyler Atkinson would be a gigantic get for Texas. I like Javion Osborne, but I think there's like 3 or 4 other prospects I throw into the same mold with him. We just mentioned 2 of them. So would it suck not to get him? Yeah, it would. Absolutely. But again, there's other guys in this class that I like. He has really good acceleration. That's one thing I noticed. He's not a burner. He's not Jaden Blue, where that top end speed is crazy, but he gets to his top end speed really quickly. I think that's more of like a Jonathan Brooks thing. Jonathan Brooks was not fast, but he got to his top end speed very, very quickly. He's also a pretty good pass catcher, but he's not asked to be a big pass catcher, which, hey, in Sark's offense, Sark does like to use his running backs out of the backfield. Yeah. We saw that with Jaden Blue. We used him a lot out of the backfield this year. So that would definitely help. But overall, I think he's a really good player. I just don't see it in the cards right now, which no hate to him. We may have to circle back, though. Like, recruiting's not perfect. KJ Edwards could decide to go somewhere else, or Xavier Crowell could decide to go somewhere else. And then guess what? We're kind of screwed. And guess what? We may go back to Javion Osborne and really put on the full court press and go after him really hard because we kind of need to.
Yeah, and I think this is, again, this is March 3rd when we're doing this, and these kids aren't signing for 7 months or 8 months, 9 months. 9 months, actually, really, when it's going to happen, right? So, like, there's a lot of time to sweat this out. I think we've got to be patient, right? This is what recruiting with the big boys is, right? Sometimes coaches leave and you lose out on a player that was one of his guys. This is just part and parcel of being the elite of the elite. If you want to sign number 1 classes, back-to-back top 3 classes, this is the kind of stuff you have to deal with, where Javion Osborne's a kid who has multiple suitors all over the country. I think it was like 50 or 60 offers when it looked like everybody wants this kid. And recruiting is a relationship business. It just is what it is. And so if the guy he has a relationship with dips, it's something that you've got to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he talked about that like a week before Tashard Choice left of like, they're the favorite right now because he's my best relationship. Michigan was a second place finisher at that moment. And then he's left. And then as soon as that happened, he canceled his visit and was like, Michigan's my number one right now. So I can't blame the kid for that. I mean, I respect that way more than someone's like, you know what? They offered me the most money. So I went there. Has nothing to do with the relationships. Like, if that's your best relationship, I respect that. So I would love to have him, like I said, but it may not be in the cards. And I think, like you said, people need to chill out because of the time of year, one thing. And then two, not Tashard Joyce and Chad Scott aren't the same people. They're not going to like the same running backs. And if that guy has a guy that he likes more off of the tape he's seen, then I want him to go recruit the guy that he wants, because guess what? He's the running back coach, and it's not up to me. I want him to recruit the guy that he wants. Like, hey, this is my number one guy. This guy actually, Javion Osborne, was like my fourth or fifth guy. So let me go after my number one. Then if I can't get him, let me go get my number two, then my number three, number four, number five, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to hate on Chad Scott for that. I think it's really smart of him to reach out once in a while just to kind of, get feelers out there. And like I said, recruiting is a long game. This isn't like the Mac Brown era where he would have recruiting basically wrapped up by April, May, and then just have everyone sign. Steve Sarkisian's pulling rabbits out of the hat late in the cycle.
And that's what it is. That's what recruiting is nationally now, right? Texas fans, this is, like you said, it's not going to be a Mac Brown. We're done by August, and we're going to focus on the season kind of class. Now, there will be guys like, I think KJ Edwards is set to decide in August, right? So we'll know on some of these guys before the season, but we have to just ride it out, because this is the biggest decision these young men will have made in their entire lives. And, the big boys, the big recruiting, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Oregon, all of those schools, all these SEC, Florida, LSU, they're pushing for all of these same guys, and they're all going to be recruiting them until the ink is dry. So we just have to be okay with this uncertainty that we have to deal with because we follow recruiting.
100%. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This is the 42nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We are over 3,000 subscribers now. So now it's time to get up to 3,100 subscribers. We're 92 away from that. So please like and subscribe. It really helps out what we're trying to build. Also, guys, if you want to sponsor or know anyone that wants to sponsor the channel, right there we have a great testimony from the Wind Agency, who's been a sponsor of the Michigan channel. And again, you don't have to do our channel. You don't have to do the Michigan channel. You don't have to do the USC channel. You can choose any channel or sponsor every channel if you want to. Again, get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners. It's posted right there on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com. That is in the comment section, so you can check out that email and send it right over. We really appreciate you guys doing that as well. Next up, we'll talk about the last thing today. Neil Brown is joining the tech staff. I think this is basically a done deal. You know how I know? I checked Wikipedia, and he's already there as Texas assistant coach. So I would love this hire if we were able to get it, because anytime you can get a big-time head coach, because that's what he was. West Virginia is a top 25 football job in the country, top 30 football job in the country, and you can get him as an analyst or something like that on a staff, it is a really big get. So what do you think about this hire, Gerald?
I love it. I mean, yeah, again, fingers crossed, pending whatever. But this is another step in Sark, like, Sabanifying Texas. And I'm not saying that, like, there's never going to be another Nick Saban. Nick Saban is a one of one. He's the greatest of all time, period, right? But Steve Sarkisian learned a lot from Nick Saban and how he wants to conduct his program, right? And so getting these coaches in as analysts early on, offering them a spot. And really, for Texas, like, they're going to continue to lose coaches, because they're going to continue to win, put guys in the league. Their coaches are going to get called up, whether it's as a wide receiver coach. Neil Brown has experience coaching wide receivers, coaching quarterbacks, as an OC, obviously as a head coach. There are the old saying is, like, none of us are as smart as all of us. And so having a bunch of smart people who know football in a room, who know offense in a room, being able to have these folks on staff in Austin contributing to what Texas is trying to build is great. And then when somebody inevitably does get the call up to a bigger job, you have somebody already in Austin that can step in and take the role, which is kind of how Nick Saban's coaching rehab worked. And I think Sark is just trying to replicate that model. And again, like I said, nobody is Nick Saban. Nick Saban is one of one. But if you can start to model yourself after what Saban did successfully for 15 years or whatever it was at Alabama, there's not a bad thing to that.
No, 100%. I mean, Nick Saban basically invented this when he went to Alabama. He created like, hey, I want 30 analysts to look over game film and then study and then get in a room and brainstorm and basically feed me the ideas of what they came up with. And I mean, it worked out beautifully. So everyone started copying that for good reason. And I think Neil Brown would do a really good job. And I mean, again, piggybacking off that Nick Saban point, I believe it's the 2015 staff at Alabama. That staff, if anyone goes back and looks at it, is insane. It's like Mario Cristobal, Dan Lanning was a GA. Mike Loxley, I believe, was something to do with an offensive analyst. Or like, it's insane. There's like 9 different head coaches on one staff. So, and that team was really good. So when you get teams or staffs like that together, those teams tend to be really damn good. So if you can build a super staff, that really helps out. Like you said, Neil Brown, he's been an offensive coordinator, he's been a QB coach, he's been a head coach. And I think he'd be a really good addition to the staff. What he did at West Virginia that I liked was there were a lot of heavy run packages, and I thought we got away from that. And I think that's something we need to get back to. Like, we really struggled, guys, in the running game. I don't think people realize that. This was the first year under Steve Sarkisian we had not averaged 5 yards per carry as a team. We averaged 4.3. Like, it was way down. It was almost a yard down per carry. That is not good enough to win a national championship. I made a video about that halfway through the season. And I was telling people, if that stays the same, you're not winning a national championship. Well, guess what? It stayed the same. We didn't win a national championship. And I think a big reason of that is Paul Chryst, it was a really good run game coordinator. He came up with some things. I think he honestly came up with the Malik Agbo thing and the jumbo thing, because after he left, we really didn't see it. So I'm hoping Neil Brown can kind of speak that back to in existence with this Texas staff, because I think it's something we need to do going forward. We need to be able to maul people. We need to be able to do those 1 yard goal line things versus Ohio State, versus Oklahoma. If you win a national championship, you blow that into the end zone, you score that touchdown, you take that lead, you tie that football game. We have not been able to do that really against big boy football teams. So I'm really hoping he can come in and allow us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a direct line between Texas not being able to punch a ball in between the tackles in the red zone and Ohio State winning that game by 2 scores, right? Like, there's a direct line between those two. And so I think, if Neil Brown could come in and bring some of that conversation, to bring some of that mentality, because like you said, West Virginia was a very run-heavy, downhill kind of football stuff that I just absolutely love seeing it. Big West Virginia fan these last few years. So I hope that that's something that they bring, because I think that is the missing link for Texas in the red zone, is being able to run between the tackles, being able to punch in for 1 yard, right? 1 yard is all you need. That's standing between you and a national championship in a lot of ways. So can Texas reinstall that? And hopefully that's something that Neil Brown brings to the conversation.
Yeah, because we really already have everything else. Like, you see the speed at the combine being displayed by everyone that we have on this team. We have the durability. Injuries have not been an issue at all under Steve Sarkisian, literally at all. I'm knocking on wood now because I'm hoping that doesn't jinx us, but they have not been an issue like they were under Tom Herman. They were a gigantic issue. Guys, we heard all the time with soft tissue injuries. We do not see that under Teray Becton and Steve Sarkisian's staff. So really good with that. Really, it is the 1 yard mentality of getting that ball in the end zone. It's cost us a couple big games over the years under Steve Sarkisian. So that's the last thing. I'm hoping Neil Brown can bring that. And he's done a really good job at hiring guys like this, like Paul Chryst. If we hire Neil Brown, I believe Scotty Hazelton, also from Kansas State and like North Dakota State, I believe, as like a special teams guy or wide
Gary Patterson.
Guy. Yeah, Gary Patterson was a really big one as well. So he's kind of nailed these, like he's nailed the rest of his staff. So I really, really would love it if Neil Brown did join the staff. Like you said, as many good minds as we can get on the staff is definitely welcomed.
Absolutely. I mean, again, this is the coaches. If coaches are an egotistical group, right? And so being able to manage all those personalities is a task in and of itself. But if Sark can get them all rowing the boat in the same direction, adding their ideas, and really seeing this as an opportunity to prove yourself for whatever your next gig is, because I guarantee you Neil Brown is not done coaching, right? This is not a final result for him. This is a moment where he's going to try to rebound and rehash and figure things out and move on. And Texas is the perfect place to do that. And so getting all these smart people in the building, never a bad thing.
Yeah, and he's made a lot of money at West Virginia, and I believe they're still paying him. So the
Yeah.
salary, I think analysts only get paid like $31,000, something like that. That doesn't really mean anything because the guy's probably getting paid millions of dollars from West Virginia. So
Yeah.
I think they're pretty I think it's a win for all parties. I think he'll be pretty content if he does join the staff. And again, according to Wikipedia, he has already joined the staff. So to me, he's already a Texas Longhorn, but that'd be pretty interesting to see him on the sidelines after spending all that time at West Virginia. But again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 42nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Leave comments, subscribe. Let us know your feelings on all the topics we cover today. If you have any ideas for topics, guys, leave them in the comment section. We'll hit them. It's the offseason. It's long. We'll talk about whatever you want. There's rarely any breaking news. I think it was pretty cool that we got to talk about Neil Brown today. Hopefully some other things like that will happen in the future. Hey, we got lucky with Dwayne Aquino last week. So we'll just keep this train rolling, hopefully. Also, give us a follow on X, Twitter, right there. That is mine. You can also follow Gerald over there as well, also on Blue Sky. And that is his Longhorn Pod, which you can find on any platform that you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, any of it. Check it out right there. We really appreciate it. And also join us every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. No matter what, guys, we will be here, rain, shine, off season or not, talking Texas Longhorns football. Spring practice is about to kick off. We talked about that a little bit. We'll talk about that even further as we get more info. And this has been the 42nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. Thank you guys for joining us, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.